Roger de Piles was a French painter, engraver, art critic and diplomat. Life. Born in Clamecy, Roger de Piles studied philosophy and theology, and devoted himself to painting. In 1662, he became tutor to Michel Amelot de Gournay, whom he was to follow throughout his life, acting as secretary to his various missions as French ambassador to Venice, Portugal, Spain. In Venice he started a famous collection of prints, drawings and paintings of Giorgione, Correggio, Rembrandt, Claude Lorraine, Rubens, Antoine Coypel, Jean-Baptiste Forest. He also acquired a taste for political intrigue, using his travels ostensibly undertaken to study the European collections, as a buyer for Louis XIV, as cover for confidential missions, for example in Germany and Austria on behalf of Louis's minister, the Marquis de Louvois. He was not always fortunate as a spy. In 1692, during the War of the League of Augsburg, he was arrested in The Hague carrying a false passport and imprisoned for the next 5 years. He spent his time writing La Brigade de la Vie des Painters, avec un traité du peintre parfait, published in 1699 following his appointment as consul honoraire to the Académie de Peinture et de Sculpture. In 1705 he followed Amelot de Gournay to Spain, but illness forced him to return to Paris, where he died in 1709. Art critic. His important contribution to aesthetic theory rests on his dialogue sur le colorus, in which he initiated his famous defensive Rubens in the argument started in 1671 by Philippe de Champagne on the relative merits of drawing and color in the work of Titian. The argument is most fascinating as an early debate on classic versus modern in painting, in essence on the mathematics of proportion and perspective in drawing, the classic approach, as opposed to the colored brushstroke, the approach of the moderns. In his detailed study of the argument, Roger de Piles et les débats sur le colorus au siècle de Louis XIV, B. Tessadro gives a touching account of the bohème of the modern Recutus in 17th-century Paris, a history that was to repeat itself with the Impressionists. In the course of the argument, Roger de Piles introduced the term clair-obscur to highlight the effect of color in accentuating the tension between light and dark in a painting. The way Roger de Piles documented his argument with Venetian and Northern European examples was of influence to Antoine Coypel, Hyacinthe Rigaud, Nicolas de Largieri and François de Troyes. Balance of painters. To his last published work, Cause de peinture par principes avec un balance de peintures, de Piles appended a list of 56 major painters in his own time, with whose work he had acquainted himself as a connoisseur during his travels. To each painter in the list he gave marks from 0 to 18 for composition, drawing, color and expression. This gave an overview of aesthetic appreciation hinging on the balance between color and design. The highest marks went to Raffaello Sanzio and Rubens, with a slight bias on color for Rubens, a slight bias on drawing for Raphael. Painters who scored very badly in anything but color were Giovanni Bellini, Giorgione and remarkably Michelangelo Caravaggio, with 16 on color and 0 on expression. Painters who fell far behind Rubens and Raphael but whose balance between color and design was perfect were Lucas van Leyden, Sebastian Borden, Albrecht Dürer. List. The complete list is transcribed here from Manlio Burzeton, Histoire des couleurs, reproduced in Elizabeth G. Old Literary Sources of Art History, pp. 415–416. Writings. Art Graphica. Dialogue sur le colorus. Le cabinet de Monseigneur le Duc de Richelieu. Lettre du en français et un gentilhomme flamand. La Vida Rubens, La Brigada Livides Painters, a 7-volume book of painter biographies, the list of painters in Part 5, Roger de Piles Artists from Lombardy, the list of painters in Part 6, Roger de Piles Artists from Germany and the Low Countries, the list of painters in Part 7, Roger de Piles Artists from France. Cause de pencha par principes avec un balance de pentes. C. Formal analysis.